Get the buzz behind the buzz on the rise and fall of Negro League Baseball. In recognition of Major League Baseball's 2012 Civil Rights Game weekend, which pays tribute to those who fought on and off the field for equal rights for Americans, the Auburn Avenue Research Library hosted the Rise and Fall of Negro League Baseball. The event, a community forum on historical legacy of the Negro League Baseball and its impact on contemporary sports in the United States. Panelists for the discussion included James Red Moore, former player of the Atlanta Black Crackers; Lawrence Pop Williams, former player of Kansas City Monarchs; historian Nasir Muhammad of Black Mecca of the South Tours; Terence Moore, a former Atlanta Journal-Constitution sports journalist; Greg White, historian of Negro League Baseball; and Calvin Alexander Ramsey, renowned author and playwright. Dr. Stephane Dunn of Morehouse College moderated the discussion. Now get the buzz behind the buzz of Negro League Baseball.
Well, 16, I guess, back then. And I remember they used to play at Callaway Stadium. And we had a couple of my buddies, we would jump, we knew how to, he used to jump that fence and get into the ball game free, you know. But I remember Red, and that kind of made me want to be a baseball player by watching Red Moore and the Black Crackers. We didn't even have a high school baseball team. So I played semi-pro ball with a lot of guys around Atlanta when I was a young boy. And they were some good ball players, and I learned a lot from those guys. And then after I grew up to be a man, I finally ran into a guy in Michigan from Mississippi. He was a butcher at a meat store, and he knew Buck O'Neill. I'm sure you've heard of Buck O'Neill. He's one of the top black ball players in the Negro League.
That was James Red Moore. You know, you got to remember there were a lot of people that paved the way, but a lot of times these guys get no due. You know, Major League Baseball, they did the draft in 2008. To me, that was a touch, but that could have been taken to a whole nother level. I told someone to use these guys while they're living, tell their story, because I told someone, who wants to hear a story after he's gone? Like Mr. Moore said, for me to be recognized, to be in the Hall of Fame, to be recognized by the Braves, it's huge while these guys are still living, because so many times we want to recognize players after they're gone. The whole piece with Major League Baseball, how they did the induction of Negro League Baseball players a couple of years ago, to me, that was a joke. I told them we had to take it seriously, and I just want to say to all my young people and everybody that's Facebooking, Facebook, something that matters. You know, we Facebook so much trash, but Facebook stuff that matters. You know, we got people like Walter Banks. This is a real historian here for the Atlanta Braves. We have to tell these stories, and I told somebody that having more forums like this, and I always tell young kids, I consider myself a Major League Baseball player. They say, you hadn't taken a swing. I said, yeah, I've taken a swing by telling a story, keeping a story alive. You can write, you can Facebook, you can draw, tell it. You can be a Terence Moore, you can be any of these guys. You don't always have to play baseball, but tell the real story, because the stories get lost.
So we was from the South, but you know when the players who were playing the team, you know, they spent them to the best of the team. So we had an opportunity to play them and everything, and people had an opportunity to see the talent that we had. We had a pretty good talent line now, like when you get down like that.
What I could see is when I was a young man, like the young kids today, you didn't see any black ball players in the major leagues. That was a big thing right there. That's the big money right there. The Negro League was there because that's the only way we could play the game, is have our own, you know.
Slowed down game. The game is slowed down. If you go to a Braves game, you'll see they try to incorporate some of the entertainment, but I'm telling you, if you go online and YouTube Atlanta Black Crackers, the film that they have found at the Atlanta History Center, you will see is fast-packed action. And I'm telling you, that's the kind of thing that will attract African Americans in terms of playing the game. I know a lot of people say, well, you know, we had a 20% African American participation, now you have less than 9. I won't go on into all that, but I will say this, that the Negro League players were in the community. They lived in the community, so they were a part of the community. When Deion Sanders was in Atlanta playing for the Atlanta Braves, Deion Sanders would leave Turner Field, and Deion Sanders would go in the community right in Summerhill and play stickball. The same thing that Willie Mays and others did in New York. But if the players today get in a Benz, Lexus, or a Beamer, and they're driving through Summerhill, you're never going to be able to connect with the youth and get them excited about playing, because they see LeBron and whoever, and the Negro Leagues actually started all of that. And I'll say one last thing on this. They weren't just baseball players without education. These were educated black men participating in a sport that was a part of the community. You'll find, if you go to the Atlanta History Center and start pulling up Atlanta Black Cracker stuff, you'll see these guys had degrees. They graduated high school. They got their degrees. Some of them were playing baseball when school was out, in college. So, and not only were they doing that, in terms of the treatment in America and outside of America, they weren't just playing just in America. They played ball in Panama, the Philippines, Japan, Cuba. Cuba was one of the best places for them to play. The love that they received in Cuba was, tremendous in terms of the international aspect. I think a lot of times with the Negro League players, that part of it is not talked about and exposed because it deals with America's mistreatment, yet they go in foreign soil and they're treated and they're respected and they're loved. And not only with that, I'll say this last point, I'm sorry about that. In Mexico, I have a thing I found in Mexico. Josh Gibson was in Mexico playing, and I think he was on the Puerto Rico team, I can't remember what team. He was playing in Mexico. And outside of the stadium, Mexicans were hungry, homeless children, all of that. They took the money that they received, Josh Gibson and others, the money that they received, and bought food for the Mexican poor children. So they were a part of every community that they went in, and when they couldn't stay in the hotels, a lot of them stayed in the homes of people in the very city where they actually played. So that part of it, in terms of what they sacrificed and what they went through, is something that we all have to reflect on and appreciate, because before King was marching, they were already doing it.
So do we think then that if we ask this question, why did Major League Baseball finally, right? Why did integration finally happen? We know it wasn't just a matter, because it goes back to economics, doesn't it, all the time? It's not just a matter of a few well-meaning, right, Caucasian men and so forth. It also had to have been because of the Negro League itself, correct?
Right.
Did integration happen because they saw the economics of the Negro League? What is your thoughts about how the Negro League really contributed to the integration?
And there's no question about that. And see, the other thing too about the Negro League, and this is something that needs to be pointed out. The Negro League officially leagues were about, I guess it was 7 initially, in 1920, which was the first year the National Football League started, by the way, which is interesting. But there were actually Negro leagues before that. And we're talking about decades before that. And matter of fact, the first game played between two black teams was in 1860, before the Civil War. So it's been going on for a long period of time. But you mentioned Cuba, and that jogged the memory, and it just tells you about, we were talking about racism, about how they had to battle. Accepting that there were Cuban players instead of black players, and it kind of puts everything in perspective about where this country was back then, and about how far it had to go to get to Jackie Robinson.
Now, I want to open it up to you guys out there. And, go ahead, Mr. Williams. After Mr. Williams speaks, and we're going to entertain one more short question and then open it up to all of you.
I'd like to make a comment on something that
Mr. Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
he was saying about speeding up the game. Ricky Henderson, Lou Brock, some of the faster guys. They, according to Buck O'Neill, he feels that we reinterpreted the way the game could be played by running them making daring plays, you know, from first to third on a base hit, that kind of a thing. When you have guys that can really run and do that, that's what he did, you know. And that speeds the game up. They could really, you know, people like to see that. They like to see guys that can really make that play and go and steal that base, and they love to see a show like, you know. And we had some guys that could do that stuff. Like they always say, you always hear people talk about Bell. Cool Papa Bell. But we got some cool Papa Bell that can play now, that can run. So this is what people like to see. Fans like to see this kind of thing, and so do I.
It was getting where the East Side boys didn't allow the Summer Hill boys over. The Summer Hill boys didn't allow the East Side boys over, which is a part of me down the Old Folks Boy. So we would fight. And baseball saved me one night from a bad fight with the Summer Hill boys. We didn't carry guns, but everybody carried a knife. Or a razor to get the dead razor. So by me playing baseball, getting back from out of town late, I missed the fight. Because I would have been with my boys, as we say. Well, the next week, one of the boys got locked up. His dad got him out. The second week, another one got locked up. His dad got him out. And I heard a voice say, if you get locked up, we're going to get you out. I didn't have a dad. My only excuse was to break away from the gang and play baseball. That was my excuse, which I did. It made a man. And here's something that broke up the league. In 1960, I, along with the owner of the team, received a letter from Milwaukee. They wanted to buy the baseball franchise to move to Atlanta. And the price he was offering the owner, which I was captain of the team and just was too much money for him to turn down. And he turned it down. See? So the Milwaukee Braves moved from Milwaukee to Atlanta and went under the name of the Atlanta Braves. So that broke up the league. In the league we had the Mecca Peaches, we had the Noonan Cardinals, and like someone mentioned about the Green City Cats. We had the Athens Red Sox. We had the Augusta Giants. And, oh, I'm sorry. That is what happened to the baseball league. Because we held the baseball leagues together. Although up north, they could go for white teams. Now, we had the white Atlanta Black Crackers here. I mean, the white Crackers here. But they wasn't going to use us. But they would let us use the field on Ponce de Leon Park to play when they were out of town. And here is something else too. This goes back to us black men. When I started out with a team, I wrote letters to all the black business in Atlanta that I knew could afford to give a donation. And do you know, the guy that answered my letter was here to instead. I didn't want money. I wanted that, ball or help uniforms. You got to admit it. We don't get together to help these kids. Now, I know you all may be sorry you came here. I came here because I'm going to tell you the truth like it is. Don't say that a kid can't learn. Anytime a kid can listen to a record one night and learn everything on that record, he can learn.
That's right.
And, so I'm through now.